Hi, welcome back to my channel Crocheted by Eilidh. Today we are going to be making this summer mesh crochet shoulder bag, which is really cute, perfect for summer holidays and the beach, any summer activity. So let's get started. For this project you will need DK weight yarn and you'll need at least 100 grams. I suggest using cotton as it doesn't stretch as much as acrylic. This one from Emu is really lovely to work with and the colour I'm using is Ocean. For the original bag though, this one here, I used walnut tree yarn, kind cotton. This one, I don't know if you can see, it's a lot finer strands, so I actually doubled it up for the original bag. So you can choose if you're to use yarn that's as fine as this. I do suggest doubling it up, but for today I will be using this cotton DK. You'll also need a 4mm crochet hook, scissors and stitch marker. I just use my safety pins. I've bent some of them out of shape. And you also will need a needle. I don't have mine on me, but to sew in the ends. To start off with, you're going to chain 50, and that will be to make a bag the same size as mine. So if you want to make it as long as this, you'll need to do 50. If you want to make a smaller bag, you'll do less, and if you want to make your bag bigger, you can do more. So to start off with, do your slip knot. I've already done mine, and you're going to chain 50. Okay, so I've chained 50, so let's measure it against the other one. As you can see, it is a wee bit shorter. It will stretch just a wee bit, but because this bag, the yarn is doubled over, it will be slightly thicker. So if you want to make yours chains just a wee bit longer, so it's the same size as this bag, you can do. I will be leaving mine this length, so my bag will be a little bit smaller. So before you start a double crochet, is like the bottom one there, you'll need to chain another 2. You're then going to do double crochets all the way along the chain, starting in just the 3rd chain there from your hook. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook to the chain if you can, and do a double crochet. You're going to do this all the way along until the end of the chain, and I will come back once I finish. Okay, so I'm now just 2 chains away from the end one, so I'll do double crochet in here, and then in this last one here you're going to do 3 double crochets. So do the first one, then you're going to do another double crochet in the same chain, and a 3rd double crochet. We're now going to do double crochets all the way along the other side. So you're going to skip that last chain there and do your double crochet in that one there. It was the 2nd chain from the start. If you can like sort of tie this tail end in here so you don't have to sew it in at the end. So just basically keep it flat and then hide it amongst your double crochets. A wee bit fiddly. So you're just going to double crochet all the way along until you get back to the same chain you started your double crochets from, and I will join you once I finish this row and get back to where we started. We've now almost finished the double crochets on the other side. I just have 2 more to go, or no, just 1 more. No, it is 2, can't really see. So you can just go ahead and do those 2. And then this one here is the last one. So I'm going to do my double crochet. And then I'm going to do 1 more double crochet in that same one. And then I'm going to slip stitch. That is just finished. So I'm going to slip stitch into this chain, the stitch right here. It's the first stitch, your first double crochet from the row before. And that is you completely finished your first row. You're then going to chain 2, and you then turn your work. And we're then going to do a double crochet in this, not the very first one there, but the second one, because that one is basically your starting chain. So do 1 more chain for the mesh stitch, and then you're going to do a double crochet in that stitch right there. And you'll see you then have a wee bit of a gap there because you're starting the mesh stitch. So you're then going to chain 1. You're going to do a double crochet in that stitch. You're not leaving a gap right now. Okay, and then you're going to chain, and then you're going to do another double crochet, but this time you're going to leave that stitch and you're going to double crochet in that one right there, so you have a gap. The reason we're doing this, not leaving the gap for the first kind of 3, is because it stops the bag sort of, if I show you this one, it stops the bag from sort of going like that, so like bending in the way from the bottom. It sort of, instead it's sort of flat and it sort of goes a bit more out the way. It's not really that obvious because we've not done it for more than 1 row, but it just stops the bag sort of folding and being like tight. It gives a bit more shape to the bottom. So now that you've done those first 3, you've left them all next to each other, and now we've started leaving the gap. You're going to leave the gap until you get all the way till almost the end. Once you're almost at the end, I will come back and I will show you what to do. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end here, so you can't see that well, but you see our last 3 like double crochets in the same stitch from the previous row. That's kind of where we're going to do our 4 double crochets for the mesh stitch, but not leaving the gap. So I'll show you. Right now I'm still leaving the gap here, so I'll do a double crochet in that stitch here, and then chain 1. So now that is the first of our double crochets from the previous row that were all in the same one. So I'm going to do a double crochet in that stitch. I'm still going to chain, and then I'm going to do a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1 and double crochet in the next stitch. And you see we have 4 there that are all close together with no gap. And now it doesn't actually matter like exactly where you do these 4 where there's no gap. It also wouldn't matter if you were to do 5 with no gaps, as long as it's sort of equalish on each end. So yours may end up being different if you change a different number at the start, but don't worry, as long as along the like front bit here there's like gaps and it's all even, it's so you can't really tell around the sides because the way it sits. And this is only what we're doing for the very first row of the mesh stitch, so it will all even out by the second row. So I'm now going to start leaving the gaps again. So I've done my chain and I'm going to double crochet into that stitch here. So you see how it sort of sticks out a bit there instead of going like in the way, which it would had we not done the 3 double crochets in the same stitch, and if we had left gaps here. By not leaving the gaps at the bottom of the double crochets, it helps it keep that shape. Alright, I will come back once I have finished this row. Okay, so I've now nearly got back to the start there. So if you can see, there is a chain there, or a stitch there and a stitch there, and then it's back to that starting stitch with the chains there. So I'm going to leave that gap there and double crochet into that last stitch there. And then if you can see, we now have 1, 2, 3 and 4 where there is no gap. So it's just like the other end now. If yours has ended up different though, if you've ended up with gaps or if you've ended up with 5 together or whatever, it's not that important. It will still end up looking just fine. So what you're going to do now is we're going to start our next row. So you're going to slip stitch just into that gap where the chains are. Okay, so it just looks like that, and then you're going to chain 3. You're then going to turn your work, flip it round, and to start the next row you're going to miss that gap there because these chains are going to act as the stitch for that first gap, and you're going to double crochet into that gap there. See, and then you will chain and double crochet into that gap there. And you're just going to keep doing this exact pattern the entire way around. Nothing should change when you get to the ends now. It should just be the exact same. And when you get back to where you started there, you will chain into that gap there, which is the same as kind of the same stitch as, or the gap next to where your starting chains start, and then you will just do your slip stitch into that gap, and basically you will just repeat exactly what we have done for however many rows you have. I'll come back when I get to the end of this row just to show you how you should finish it off. Alright, so we're just coming up to the end here. I'm going to do another double crochet there. Sorry, just move out of the camera there. So you see where we did our starting chains there? They act as the stitch for that gap there, so you're going to do over the chains and double crochet in this stitch here. So you see we have one for each of those. You're then going to chain and slip stitch into the gap there, and then do your chain 3. So you're going to repeat exactly what we have done for the last row for 16 more rows, or however many you feel you need. So for this bag here, I have a total of 18 rows of the mesh. It'd be 19 including this bottom row here. And then once you finish that, we then start to work on the strap. So I will come back once I have finished all my rows and show you how to make the strap. So I've now finished all the rows of the main section of the bag. I did a total of 19 rows, including this one here at the bottom. And as you can see, I've marked where my straps are going to start. So looking at this bag, we're going to move on to this section here with the straps that sort of curve in or curve out, getting smaller. So I've sort of folded the bag in half, and then each strap is probably a quarter of the entire top of the bag. So that's how I count where I've marked the straps. So I've actually counted in 8 gaps on either side, but if you fold the bag in half, you can see that it's sort of halfway along, maybe a little bit more. But really you just mark the straps wherever you want. It's really just whatever your preference is. So to finish off this main section of the bag, you just do the slip stitch into the chains like you've done before. Mine seems to be all twisted. There you go. You just slip stitch into that chain before, and then just do another slip stitch and cut your yarn there and pull it through nice and tight. And then once you do the straps, you'll be able to tuck this tail in on the inside of your bag so it's not visible. So to start off with the straps, we're going to start in this stitch just here. And the way we're going to make the straps, well, if you can see, it's sort of a big triangle there from the side. The way we're going to make them go in each row, basically decreasing, is on the last one. You're going to leave no gap, so then when you do your next row, you basically miss one of the gaps, so you have one last stitch for each row. So I'll start that now. You're going to take your yarn and do a slip knot and pull it tight. You're then going to insert into that gap there where I've marked. You want to make sure that you flipped your bag so that the direction of the rows before are going sort of that way to the right. So then for your next row, you're crocheting towards the left. That's the way your stitches will go. So you like continue this sort of zigzag that we've got going up the back. So you're going to insert into that gap, and you're going to pull right the way through the first chain, and then you're going to chain 3. You see we have 3 chains there as well as the joining chain. You're then going to, I forget what we do for the first one. Yeah, we're going to go into the next gap. So just this gap here. And then you're going to just chain 1 and then continue the double crochet right around. So it's the exact same pattern that you were doing before just now. you're not doing it the entire way around the bag. You're going to chain 1 and then do your double crochet. You're going to do this until you get to the gap before your gap with the stitch marker. So I'm just passing where the join is for the main section of the bag. Just leave the tail, it's on the inside of the bag, and then you can sew it in later using a needle. Okay, there we go. So we're just the one before the gap with the stitch marker. So you see I've done no chain there, so you're just going to do a double crochet into that gap there, leaving no gap. So you see it pulls it a bit closer together. You're then going to chain 3, and instead of chaining into that one, because there effectively is no gap now, you're going to turn your work, miss that first gap, and then double crochet into the main gap there. You're then going to continue this basically the whole way up the strap until it gets to kind of a width that you want the main section of the strap to be. So if you can see there, mine's just 4 double crochet stitches for each. So I'll be doing the same for this bag here, or possibly I will do 5, because it depends a little bit. If you've got a different number of stitches, it depends what numbers you have once you get to that point. So you're then going to just repeat exactly what you've done for the first row. When you get to this end, you're gonna miss the chain in between the 2 double crochets for the last one, and then miss the gap for the next row. I will show you again once I get to the end of this row. So you can see we're at the second last gap, so I've done no chain, and then going to double crochet into that last gap, so I'm then going to chain 3 just like we did the previous row. Turn your work, and you're going to double crochet into that second gap, the first proper gap, and then you just continue back as normal. So I'm going to keep doing this until I have about 4 or 5 gaps left, and I will come back and I will show you how you're going to do the rest of the strap. So I've just got to the end of my 3rd row, and I forgot to say that before you do your last stitch, there, I'll just go back. The way that one sits, it looks a little bit like maybe you shouldn't do your last stitch into there because there's not much of a gap, but you should still do your double crochet into the last gap, and then, but still not leaving the gap there, and then do your 3 chains and turn, miss that bit and go on like that. I just realised when I came along there on my 3rd row, it looks a little bit like you shouldn't leave, you should just miss out that last stitch, but I don't know what it would look like if you didn't. I think that it would ruin the angle that the strap goes up. it looks quite good like that. It doesn't go too sharp. It makes it a bit more gradual the way you do it. So just make sure you're always doing a double crochet into the last stitch before you turn. So I'm sorry, but for some reason this part of my video seemed to go missing, so I'm going to show you how you change from doing the decreasing bits of the strap where it's getting narrower to where you're just going to have 4 stitches for the main bit of the strap. So right now I've got 6 double crochets here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 6th one's just your chains, but it acts as a stitch. So you're going to turn it over, you're going to miss that one because you see there's no gap there. You're going to do your double crochet in there, chain 1, double crochet, and you'll see we have 4 stitches, so then you're going to chain 1 and double crochet into that gap there. To this one here, you don't leave a gap, you're just going to double crochet into there. You're going to then do 2 chains. You're going to turn it over, do double crochet into here, chain 1, double crochet into this gap here, chain 1, double crochet into this final gap here, and you see we have 4 stitches and just 3 gaps in between them. So now you're going to chain 2. You're going to do double crochet into each gap. So I think that actually it would be better if you did 3 chains. I think I've just been doing 2, so it's a bit tight. So you see there we have 4 stitches again. So you're going to continue doing this. And let's chain 3 this time, just to see if that worked better. Yeah, you have a little bit more space. So you'll continue doing this until your strap is half the length you want it to be, because then you're going to do the same on the other side and meet them in the middle to sew together. So you can repeat this section to make sure you're getting it right until your strap is the length you want it to be. So I've now crocheted what I think is about half of what my strap length is going to be. You can make your final decision once you crochet the other one. You can sort of hold them together, see how long you think it's going to be, if you want it to be longer or shorter. I'm not quite sure how many rows I've done, maybe about 10 or 15 of just the strap, but I'm now just going to, I've just done a slip stitch at the end, and I'm just going to pull that through. You just then line that up with your other strap and sew them together. So for the next strap, you're basically going to repeat exactly what you've done for the first strap. So you can rewind the video to where we started the first strap and you're just doing the exact same, making sure you start in this one here, pointing the opposite way from the direction of the stitches before. The pattern isn't too obvious there, but you can see if you look close there's a bit of a zigzag. You don't want to go out with that pattern. So once I've crocheted my next strap, I will come back. I will show you how to crochet the two straps together, but this next strap is just the exact same. So I've now finished the second strap. As you can see, I've just done a slip knot again. You're going to cut a bit of a longer tail this time, cutting about here. So you can then use that tail to sew together the two straps. So what I've done is the two rows there and together, sorry it's quite dark, can't really see, going the same way, but that's so that the way the stitches are, you can sort of line them up on top of each other, which makes it quite neat to sew together. So I'm basically just going to get my needle and I'm just going to sew the two rows together as neat as I can. So make sure, be really careful that your strap doesn't get twisted or you'll just have to redo it. So I'm provisionally just going to kind of go through that gap there and then the other one, and I'm just going to wind it through each of the rows, each of the gaps, sorry. Oh, somehow I've managed to make the gaps not line up. That's not very good. So somehow I managed to lose the video of me sewing the actual straps together, but it's pretty simple. You just sew them together as neat as you can, and that is your bag all finished.